This is the story of how John Ford spent 15 years fighting Hollywood to make a film nobody wanted, and how John Wayne sacrificed his salary to help his mentor achieve a dream, creating what the Duke himself would call his favorite movie of all time. The Quiet Man wasn't supposed to happen. Studio after studio rejected it, with executives calling it a silly Irish story that won't make a penny. What started as director John Ford's $10 gamble on a short story in 1933 became one of the most beloved films in cinema history, transformed Irish tourism forever, and gave us one of the most iconic on-screen romances ever filmed. This is the untold story of loyalty, sacrifice, and stubborn determination behind the making of The Quiet Man, the $10 Dream. February 11, 1933 found director John Ford reading the Saturday Evening Post when he came across a short story by Irish author Maurice Walsh. The tale, called The Quiet Man, told of an Irish-American boxer who returns to his ancestral village seeking peace, only to find himself entangled in love, tradition, and one unforgettable fight. Ford felt something deeper than professional interest. This wasn't just another story to him, this was personal. Born John Martin Feeney on February 1, 1894, in Cape Elizabeth, Maine, the director came from Gaelic-speaking Irish immigrants whose roots ran deep. His father came from Spiddal, County Galway, while his mother hailed from Kilronan on the Aran Islands. Ford himself had visited Ireland in 1921 and fell deeply in love with the countryside, later writing, "Galway is in my blood and the only place I have found peace." 3 years after reading that story, Ford reached into his own pocket and purchased the film rights to The Quiet Man for just $10 of his own money. $10 represented how much he believed in this story, how much he needed to tell it. Maurice Walsh, the author, eventually received $2,500 when Republic Pictures optioned the story, plus another $3,750 when production finally began. But that initial $10 investment came from pure Ford, a man betting on a dream. What Ford envisioned went beyond just making a movie. He called it the most personal film he would ever make and deliberately filled the screenplay with autobiographical touches that would mean everything to him and nothing to the studios. The main character's name, Sean, Ford's real first name. A character named Feeney appears in the film carrying Ford's actual birth surname. The fictional village of Innisfree borrowed its name from William Butler Yeats's famous poem about longing for Ireland. Ford once told playwright Eugene O'Neill, "If there is any single thing that explains either of us, it's that we are Irish." The Quiet Man would become Ford's love letter to the land of his ancestors, but first he'd have to fight Hollywood for 15 years to make it. 15 years of no. Picture having a dream project and being told no for 15 consecutive years, watching studios dismiss your vision over and over until you start wondering if you're the one who's crazy. That's what John Ford endured. Every major studio in Hollywood heard his pitch for The Quiet Man. 20th Century Fox turned him down. RKO passed, MGM showed him the door, and Selznick International gave him the same answer. The verdict came back unanimous and brutal. This was a silly little Irish story that won't make a penny. Maureen O'Hara later recalled that the studios believed no one would pay to see an Irish romance, that American audiences simply couldn't care about a love story set in rural Ireland. Deeper reasons drove the rejection beyond just box office fears. According to Cineaste magazine, in the 1930s the subject felt out of sync with a world spiraling from the Great Depression to World War II, and after the war ended, Hollywood remained leery about portraying a hero abandoning America at a time when Cold War chauvinism was ascendant. Think about what that meant for Ford. The man had made The Informer, Stagecoach, The Grapes of Wrath, and How Green Was My Valley, some of the greatest films ever made. Academy Awards sat on his shelf, and his reputation as one of Hollywood's most respected directors was unquestioned. None of that mattered when it came to getting money for this film. One glimmer of hope appeared in the late 1940s when Alexander Korda's London films showed interest, but that deal collapsed too. Ford was running out of options, and that's when he formed his own production company, Argosy Pictures, with producer Marion C. Cooper in 1946. The whole point was financing independent productions, films like The Quiet Man that the studios wouldn't touch. Even with his own company behind him, Ford couldn't get the financing he needed. The project seemed cursed, doomed to remain nothing more than a $10 dream gathering dust. Then came the handshake that would change everything. 3 people, 1 promise. Between 1944 and 1945, Ford was working at RKO on a film called The Spanish Main when he approached actress Maureen O'Hara on set with an offer that would bind them together for years. O'Hara described what happened next in an interview with the Los Angeles Times on October 28, 2000, recalling how she, Ford, and John Wayne made a handshake agreement to make The Quiet Man together. No contracts came out, no lawyers got called, just a promise between three people who believed in the dream. Barry Fitzgerald and Victor McLaglen also committed to appear in the film, which meant the cast was set and now they just needed a studio willing to finance it. Summers found O'Hara with Ford and his family, taking dictation on his boat for story ideas and dialogue that would eventually shape the screenplay. According to the Library of Congress, she helped Ford refine the story by removing the politics from the story and focusing it on romance and comedy, a strategic decision Ford knew was essential for American audiences. The story needed to feel universal, not just about Ireland, if it was going to work in theaters, but they still didn't have the money, and by 1950, after 15 years of trying, Ford was down to his last option, Republic Pictures. The deal that almost wasn't. Republic Pictures wasn't the kind of studio that made prestige films. They cranked out B-movies and westerns, lots of westerns, building their reputation on cheap productions and quick turnarounds rather than artistic visions or international location shoots. Studio chief Herbert J. Yates shared Hollywood's skepticism about The Quiet Man, calling it a phony art house picture and a silly Irish tale that would make no money. Ford had one card left to play though, and that card was timing. John Wayne was finishing his contract with Republic, which meant Ford wouldn't have to pay premium rates for the biggest star in westerns. Yates saw an opportunity and made Ford an offer. "I'll finance your Irish picture, but only if you, Wayne, and O'Hara make me a guaranteed commercial success first, a western that will put money in the bank." Ford agreed without hesitation, and the result was Rio Grande, released in 1950 as the final chapter of Ford's Cavalry trilogy. The film delivered at the box office, and Yates kept his word. The Quiet Man got greenlit, but the deal came with strings attached. Yates demanded budget cuts because the original proposal was too expensive for Republic to swallow. They needed to trim costs, find savings, make the numbers work. And if you think John Wayne's loyalty to John Ford is legendary, what he did next proves it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because this story gets even better. Wayne's ultimate sacrifice. John Wayne didn't just show up to make The Quiet Man, he sacrificed financially in a way that proves loyalty sometimes costs real money. When Herbert Yates demanded budget reductions, Wayne made a decision that stunned the people around him. Out of what sources describe as undying loyalty to his coach, Wayne's nickname for Ford, the Duke waived his contractual profit percentage and accepted a flat fee of $100,000 instead. $100,000 represented good money in 1951. Nobody's arguing that, but Wayne was giving up potentially much more by abandoning his usual profit participation deal. The film succeeded spectacularly at the box office, which meant Wayne left a fortune on the table for Ford's dream. Maureen O'Hara similarly worked below her standard rate, and these sacrifices helped keep the production budget at $1,750,000, Republic Pictures' biggest production ever, but still manageable for a studio used to making movies for pocket change. Why did Wayne do it? Patrick Wayne, John's son, later explained, "My father was a tremendously loyal person, and he never ever forgot that Ford had done that. Even if they hadn't liked each other, my father would have done anything for this man." The "that" Patrick referred to was Ford casting Wayne in Stagecoach in 1939, the film that transformed Wayne from a B-movie cowboy into a leading man and superstar overnight. By 1951, Wayne had appeared in over 24 films with Ford, building a relationship that was complex, often difficult, but ultimately defined by mutual respect and loyalty. Patrick Wayne offered additional insight into their dynamic. "For Ford, I think that he thought he was John Wayne. When he looked in the mirror, he saw John Wayne. Ford could be a bully and a tyrant on set. Maureen O'Hara said as much repeatedly, but Wayne understood him in ways others didn't. More than that, Wayne owed him everything. And when Ford needed him to take less money to make his dream project happen, Wayne didn't hesitate for a second." Years later, Wayne would call The Quiet Man his favorite film, not True Grit, which won him his only Oscar, not The Searchers, which many consider his greatest performance, not any of his dozens of legendary westerns. The Quiet Man, the Irish romance that nobody wanted to make, stood above them all. 6 weeks in Ireland. Spring of 1951 brought John Ford to Ireland with cinematographer Wynton Hawke to scout locations, and they chose sites in County Mayo and County Galway, Connemara, where Ford said his people come from. Cong, a tiny village between Lough Corrib and Lough Mask, became the primary location and would transform into the fictional Innisfree that audiences would fall in love with. Filming began on June 7, 1951, and wrapped in Ireland on July 17, giving them 6 weeks to capture what would become one of the most visually stunning films ever made. The challenges they faced were considerable and constant. Kong had no electricity, so the production brought its own generators to power the lights and equipment that would make filming possible. This was Republic Pictures' first film shot in Technicolor, because Yates typically used the cheaper TrueColor process, but Ford insisted on Technicolor for visual authenticity, wanting to capture the greens of Ireland, the reds and oranges of Maureen O'Hara's hair and costumes in a way that mattered. Technicolor wasn't optional for this film, it was essential. Republic had never shot a film outside the United States before, which meant everything had to be shipped overseas. Equipment, crew, even modernized phone lines, so they could maintain 24-hour contact with the studio back home. The village of Kong was prioritized for Ireland's rural electrification program during filming, and Ford and the cast actually attended the ceremony when the lights were switched on for the first time in that community's history. The locations they chose have become legendary in the decades since. Whiteomorn Cottage, Sean Thornton's ancestral home, was built specifically for the film and now sits in ruins, designated a protected monument in 2015. The Quiet Man Bridge, near Otterdard, where Sean first envisions his mother's stories, now features a plaque of John Wayne that tourists visit from around the world. Lettergesh Beach on the Renville Peninsula provided the setting for the horse race scene that remains thrilling to watch. Ballyglunin Railway Station, which appeared as Castletown Station in the film, closed in 1976, but restoration work is currently underway with support from actors Liam Neeson and Gabriel Byrne. Byrne put it this way: "The image of Ballyglunin Station is known to millions all over the world and is part of film archaeology. Ashford Castle housed the entire cast and crew, a medieval castle dating to 1228 that had been converted to a hotel in 1939. Its grounds appear throughout the film, including in the climactic fight scene that audiences remember decades later. A famous dispute exists about the weather during filming. Cinematographer Winton Hoke complained they had only 6 days of unbroken sunshine, but as Ireland's Eye magazine noted, 6 consecutive sunny days was considered unusually fine weather for an Irish summer. Maureen O'Hara herself disputed accounts of constant rain. To say it rained while we were there is simply not true. The truth probably sits somewhere in between those accounts, but Ford got his shots, and the film looks magnificent regardless of what the weather actually did." Behind-the-scenes stories you've never heard. The famous scene where John Wayne drags Maureen O'Hara across the fields came with a backstory that reveals just how mischievous and sometimes cruel John Ford could be to his actors. Before filming began, Wayne and Ford kicked all the sheep dung they could find onto the hill where O'Hara would be dragged face down through the grass. O'Hara discovered their plan and, with help from friends, kicked all the sheep dung off the hill in retaliation. Wayne and Ford kicked it back, which started a back-and-forth battle that continued until filming began, with Wayne and Ford getting the final kick and winning the war. O'Hara recalled, "Duke had the time of his life dragging me through it. It was bloody awful." But here's the cruel part that shows Ford's nature. After the scene wrapped, Ford instructed that O'Hara receive neither water nor towel, forcing her to wear that mess for the rest of the day. That was Ford, a genius filmmaker but also a bully who enjoyed watching his actors suffer for his art. Another mystery has never been solved, and probably never will be. In the film's final scene, O'Hara whispers something in Wayne's ear that provokes a genuinely shocked reaction from the Duke, and to this day nobody knows what she said. O'Hara initially refused to say the line, telling Ford she couldn't possibly say that to Duke, but Ford insisted, wanting to capture an authentic reaction that no amount of acting could replicate. The mystery remains unsolved because O'Hara took that secret to her grave. The legendary fight scene between Wayne and Victor McLaglen runs approximately 9 minutes of screen time, and the Quiet Man Museum describes it as the longest fistfight in cinematic history. Filming took place primarily on Ashford Castle grounds and throughout Kong, with one detail most people don't know about the production. Patrick Ford, the director's son, performed stunt work for the 65-year-old McLaglen, who couldn't handle all the physical demands anymore. Patrick also served as second unit director alongside Wayne, marking Wayne's first assignment behind the camera and giving him a taste of directing that would serve him later. Family connections ran throughout The Quiet Man like threads in a tapestry. Francis Ford, John's estranged older brother, played Dan Tobin in his 29th appearance in a Ford film, though the brothers never socialized on set despite working together. Maureen O'Hara's brother, Charles B. Fitzsimons, played Hugh Forbes, while another brother, James O'Hara, who went by James Lilburn, played Father Paul. Wayne's children appeared in the film too. Patrick Wayne, age 13 at the time, along with Michael Wayne at 18, Mary Antonia Wayne at 16, and Melinda Wayne at 12, all appear in the horse race scene that sweeps across the Irish countryside. Arthur Shields, who played Reverend Playfair, was Barry Fitzgerald's brother in real life, adding another family connection to a production that felt more like a reunion than a job. The Quiet Man wasn't just a film production, it was a family reunion shot on location in Ireland. Ford's 120 Gambit. Late July 1951 brought the cast and crew back to Hollywood after filming wrapped in Ireland, and they shot interior scenes at Republic Studios before Ford delivered his final cut. The film ran 129 minutes, which created a problem. Republic Pictures demanded the film run under 2 hours, but Ford delivered a 129-minute cut to the studio executives and essentially told them, "Here it is, take it or leave it." When screening the film for executives, Ford pulled off something brilliant that showed his understanding of psychology and storytelling. He deliberately stopped the projection at exactly 120 minutes, right as the climactic fight scene was beginning, cutting off the movie at the worst possible moment. Picture the scene. Executives are watching this build-up. The tension between Sean and Will Danaher has been mounting for the entire film. The fight is finally about to explode, and Ford stops the movie dead. The executives couldn't imagine the film ending without its payoff, and unable to cut the fight scene that the whole film builds toward, they relented and released it at full length, 129 minutes of Irish magic. Ford knew exactly what he was doing, playing those executives like a fiddle, because he understood that a master manipulator always knows when to stop talking and let the audience demand more. Opening night and Oscar glory. February 28, 1952, brought the world premiere at Radio City Music Hall in New York, with the Irish premiere following on June 5 in the land where it was filmed. The film exploded commercially in ways that must have felt like vindication to everyone who fought for it. First-year domestic gross reached $3,800,000, with Variety reporting rentals of $3 million that represented serious money in Hollywood's accounting. The film landed in the top 10 grossing films of 1952 and became the 7th most popular film for British audiences that year, proving international appeal that the studios never believed existed. For Republic Pictures, this represented their biggest commercial success ever, and the only Best Picture-nominated film in studio history, which says everything about how rare this achievement was for a B-movie studio. Critics offered largely enthusiastic responses. A.H. Weiler of the New York Times wrote on August 22, 1952, "As darlin' a picture as we've seen this year, with dialogue that is as tuneful as a lark's song." Kay Proctor of the Los Angeles Examiner gussed, "Never before, I'm sure, have you seen a movie quite like this one, nor will you again. Not everyone fell under the spell." Philip Hamburger of The New Yorker delivered a sharp dismissal on August 23, 1952. "The master who made The Informer appears to have fallen into a vat of treacle. That one had to sting." Audiences in the Academy loved it though, and that's what counted when awards season arrived. The 25th Academy Awards ceremony on March 19, 1953, marking the first Oscars ceremony ever televised, brought The Quiet Man 7 nominations that recognized the film's achievement. 2 wins came home that night. Best Director went to John Ford, his 4th win, which remains the all-time record to this day because no other director has won 4 Oscars for directing. Hulk and Archie Stout for capturing those glorious Irish landscapes in Technicolor that made audiences gasp. The film competed for Best Picture but lost to The Greatest Show on Earth, while Victor McLaglen received a Best Supporting Actor nomination that went to Anthony Quinn instead. Frank S. Nugent earned a nomination for Best Screenplay, and the film also competed in art direction and sound recording categories without winning. Beyond the Oscars, The Quiet Man won the Directors Guild of America Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement, the Writers Guild of America Award for Best Written American Drama, and was named Best Film by the National Board of Review. At the Venice Film Festival, it won the International Award and the OCIC Award, collecting honors across the globe. This silly Irish story that won't make a penny had become one of the most acclaimed films of the year, proving everyone wrong who doubted Ford's vision. What Wayne and O'Hara said. John Wayne didn't just make The Quiet Man. He loved it in a way that revealed something about the man beneath the tough guy persona. He called it his favorite film, choosing it over True Grit, The Searchers, Rio Bravo, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, all classics that defined his career. His words about working with Maureen O'Hara cut to the heart of their chemistry. "She makes me act because she makes me react." Ford called The Quiet Man the sexiest picture ever, with honesty, good taste, and humor, a description that captures what made the film work when it could have tipped into sentimentality or cliché. Maureen O'Hara had her own special connection to the film that lasted her entire life. She said, "I loved playing Mary Kate Danaher. I liked the hell and fire in her. embracing the character's spirit rather than trying to soften her edges. Later she expanded on that feeling. The Quiet Man is my favorite of all the pictures I made. I love it so much because it was the first great movie about Ireland, made her look wonderful, and shared her customs and traditions with the rest of the world. Her assessment of Ford was more honest about his behavior on set. He was a bully and a tyrant on any set. More than anything, he wanted to be in Ireland or be a military hero. Words that reveal the complex man behind the legendary director. When Maureen O'Hara died on October 24, 2015, her family revealed something beautiful about her final hours. She listened to music from The Quiet Man as she passed away, which tells you everything about what this film meant to her, across 7 decades of life and work. The legacy. Transforming Ireland forever. Kong felt the impact of The Quiet Man immediately and permanently. By June 1953, the Evening Herald reported an unprecedented influx of foreign visitors, as 14,000 tourists descended on the tiny village that year, overwhelming a community that had barely received electricity a few years earlier. 14,000 people flooding a small Irish village to walk the same paths John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara walked, to see the bridge, to visit the cottage, to touch something real from the movie magic. Visitors called themselves quiet maniacs, and the phenomenon has never stopped over 7 decades of continuous pilgrimage. Liam Neeson captured the impact perfectly. The Quiet Man did more for Irish tourism than anything. Outside the US, Kong is the movie location most sought after by Wayne's fans. Neeson also shared something remarkable about the film's influence on directors. I have been a professional actor for over 40 years, and during that time I have had the great fortune to have made over 70 films with many world-renowned directors. Of all those directors, I would say 60 of them have said that John Ford's The Quiet Man is in their top 5 list of favorite and influential films. 60 out of 70 directors Liam Neeson worked with named The Quiet Man as one of their top 5 favorite films, which represents the kind of influence that transcends box office numbers and award tallies. 2013 brought selection for preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant, an honor reserved for films that matter beyond entertainment. 2002 saw the American Film Institute rank it number 76 on their 100 Years 100 Passions list of greatest love stories. Steven Spielberg included the famous kiss scene on a television in E.T. the Extraterrestrial in 1982, while Martin Scorsese and Peter Bogdanovich have both discussed the film's influence in documentaries that explore the craft of filmmaking. Restoration work has preserved the film across multiple formats. 2016 brought an Olive Films Blu-ray featuring a 4K scan of the original camera negative, and February 2023 saw Paramount release the latest Blu-ray with digital HD. The 70th anniversary in 2022 brought Fathom Events, TCM, and Paramount together to screen the film in over 700 theaters across the United States on March 13th and 17th, with exclusive commentary by TCM's Ben Mankiewicz introducing a new generation to the magic. Today you can still visit these locations and touch history. Kong operates as a fully preserved tourist destination with the Quiet Man Cottage Museum, a replica of White O'Mourne Cottage that welcomes visitors year-round. The village hosts annual festivals celebrating the film, and October 2013 brought the unveiling of a bronze statue of Wayne and O'Hara that stands as a permanent memorial. The original White O'Mourne Cottage sits in ruins now, but remains a protected monument that no one can tear down or build over. Ashford Castle operates as a 5-star luxury hotel, where you can stay in the same rooms the cast used during filming. Pat Cohen's Bar, remember, wasn't actually a pub during filming because the production had just added a pub sign to a greengrocer's shop as a prop. September 2008 brought it full circle when it finally opened as an actual pub, turning movie magic into reality decades after the cameras stopped rolling. The dream that came true. John Ford fought for 15 years to make a film that Hollywood said would never work, spending $10 of his own money in 1936 to buy the rights to a short story because he believed in it when no one else did. John Wayne took a pay cut and gave up profit participation to help his mentor achieve a dream, repaying the man who made him a star by sacrificing money he would have otherwise earned. Maureen O'Hara worked for less than her usual rate because she believed in the story and trusted Ford's vision enough to bet on it alongside the men. Together they created something that transcended commerce and critical acclaim, making a film that has touched millions of people for over 70 years. They transformed Irish tourism, preserved Irish customs and traditions on film for future generations, and created one of cinema's great love stories that still makes people believe in romance. What they proved was that sometimes, the projects everyone says will fail, the silly Irish stories that won't make a penny, can become masterpieces that outlive everyone who doubted them and everyone who made them. The Quiet Man cost $1,750,000 to make in 1951. Today it's priceless, beyond any monetary value because of what it means to people across the world. John Wayne called it his favorite film. John Ford called it his most personal. Maureen O'Hara listened to its music as she passed away, holding on to it until the very end. That's not just a successful movie, that's a dream come true, and it all started with a $10 bet on Ireland, loyalty between friends, and the stubborn refusal to take no for an answer. If you loved learning about the making of The Quiet Man and the incredible loyalty between John Wayne and John Ford, do me a favor, hit that like button, leave a comment telling me what your favorite John Wayne film is, and subscribe to the channel because we've got more classic Hollywood stories coming your way. These are the stories behind the films we love, the legends we admire, and the golden age of cinema that will never be forgotten. Thanks for watching. Slante.